All right, cells. We're almost through the eukaryotic cell. So at this point, we are knowledgeable on our mitochondria, the role that it plays in converting then the ADP and the lonely phosphate to ATP with the energy from carbs, lipids, and proteins. We know that it's also fueling the endomembrane system. We know it's an important part of the eukaryotic cell. And we're going to continue on now with other organelles, right? So within all of this metabolism, this converting of energy, there's going to be some waste products that are produced. So we're going to need some sort of trash picker-upper guy, right? We're going to need some organelle to be in charge of cleaning up that cell. And that is going to be the job of the lysosomes. So lysosomes are very critical with keeping a cell clean. Basically, any garbage, any waste, any toxin that comes in has to be able to be cleaned out of that cell. So helping to keep normal homeostasis and keeping dangerous products out of the cell. It's the cell maintenance organelle, the sanitation department, and these lysosomes, again, are the site for the breakdown of foreign materials and even damaged cells. And even, like we said, organelles that are not being used, mitochondria that are sitting around, they get removed out. If they're not doing their job, they get destroyed by these lysosomes. So if you're not doing your job, you're out of there, right? Lysosome doesn't let things just be there for the sake of being there. If you're familiar with this show, like it shows people that hoard stuff, the hoarders, a cell will not be allowed to do this because of the lysosomes. So this will never happen in a normal, healthy cell with lysosomes, right? This will be discarded. Lysosomes will come in and just get rid of all that mess. Lysosomes, again, are going to help in intracellular digestion. So they're going to destroy things that are within the cell and then throw that junk out. Where does it go? We don't care as long as it's not in the cell. Another physiologically important aspect of these lysosomes comes with the idea of tolerance. Maybe some of you like to party a little bit, but some of you, I would admit, I'm a lightweight when it comes to partying, right? So I don't drink very often, and when I do, man, it has an impact right away. Right? Some of you are heavyweights, man. You drink and drink and drink and drink alcohol, and it has no effect, right? Well, we go back to the idea of these lysosomes, right? These custodial organelles. If we have a lot of custodians and alcohol comes into the system, our liver cell then can start to build up tolerance. Just like we can increase the number of mitochondria, we can increase the number of lysosomes. So when this substance comes in, these lysosomes can more rapidly break it down, right? So we have the idea of tolerance to certain drugs, to medication, things that affect one person very heavily may not have the same impact on another person because of the multiple times that they consume that substance. So the cells can adapt to what's being what situation they're being placed in. Along with this, we can kind of start to link this also to the immune system. When you go into the nursing realm, the medical field, right? You're always going to be around sick people. Think of doctors that have been doctors for a long time. They've come into contact with a lot of different types of germs, of different bacteria, viruses. So part of their immune system is really, really geared at fighting off these things. Right? Say they have a lot of lysosomes. Think of a baby. A baby hasn't really been exposed to too many things. So everything they get exposed to is something new, and it's going to take them a while to build up their immunity, right? Their lysosome count in their cells. So a baby that's born with jaundice, right? That yellow coloration in their body, well, their livers are not quite doing their job. They're not being able to clear out the bile the way they're supposed to. And we can link that back then to the amount of lysosomes that are present in their cells. So again, can adapt based on the situation that cell finds itself in day and day out. So with that, that will then conclude our discussion on the animal cell, right? We have our nucleus, ER, Golgi, mitochondria, and the different lysosomes. There's different variations, perioxyosome, there's different types of lysosomes, but collectively they all do similar things, right? We have the membrane, no cell wall. And now we're gonna contrast that with our eukaryotic plant cell, right? So we have two very, very important new organelles here. One of the very, very critical organelle we're going to talk about is the chloroplast, right? Chloroplasts are sort of like the mitochondria in that they are conversion organelles, right? They take sunlight, the kinetic photons of light, the radiation of light, and they convert that into a carbohydrate, into glucose. So energy converting organelles convert light into sugar. And this conversion process, we have a name, we call that photosynthesis. Right? Photosynthesis happening inside of those chloroplasts. So here we have some plant cells, very blocky, thick cell wall, and then we can see all of those organelles inside, those chloroplasts inside. Going back to a little bit of basic chemistry here, we know that the chloroplast is a conversion organelle, and it requires some reactants and it generates certain products. Right? So these are the ingredients, if you will, for photosynthesis. We need a carbon source that we get from carbon dioxide. We need a water source, water, H2O, and we need a source of light. So there's minerals and nutrients that are required as well, but basically these three things. A plant needs light, water, and a carbon dioxide source. If all those things go into this chloroplast, a very complicated series of reactions then convert that carbon source into glucose and a waste product that is oxygen. So it's kind of a neat recycling program, right? The human waste gas is CO2, right? If you're breathing, right, you're breathing out CO2, and that's our garbage. We don't care where it goes, we just don't want it in our body. The waste gas for plants is oxygen. They don't metabolize oxygen like that, right? So they're spewing out oxygen. Well, what did they say? One person's garbage is another person's treasure, right? So oxygen is our vital gas, and CO2 is the plant's vital gas. So our waste is the vital gas for plants. The plant's waste is the vital gas for us. So it's a neat recycling program that's there. And again, these chloroplasts have a very profound effect in our environment, in the food chain, in the food webs. So we know that all energy comes from the sun. Sun sends light. We can go outside, we will absorb heat, but that's about all, or you just get sunburn, maybe some vitamin D. But plants are able then to absorb that sunlight into the chloroplast. They generate a glucose, a food supply, a food source, which is now food for the grasshopper, right? And the grasshopper is food for the frog, and the frog is food for the snake, and the snake is food for the eagle, and it just goes on and on, yeah? But again, we look at these beautiful animals. Like, wow, look at that eagle, look at that tiger, look at that polar bear. Well, those are top-level predators, and they're only able to survive in the system that is being sort of generated by plants. So the plant base helps to support a very dynamic food chain. Think of like here in El Paso, we don't have a lot of plants out in the desert. So we don't have a lot of big predator biodiversity. We go to a tropical forest, there's a lot of plants which sustain a lot of different variation, a lot of different life, and there's multiple predators there. Yeah? So again, all of that coming back to a tiny organelle inside of plants. This generation and future generations are going to have a big global issue with carbon dioxide accumulation, right? And we know that there's more than 7 billion people on planet Earth right now, and each of these people are breathing and driving automobiles and releasing carbon dioxide into the environment. And that should be a good thing. That should be fine because we have all of these plants they're designed to pick up all that CO2 and release oxygen. So wow, that should be good. The more CO2 should equal more oxygen for us, right? But we have a global situation in which a lot of the plant life is, tropical forests are being chopped down, right? Think of your neighborhood. Maybe it's an empty lot they used to play in as a kid, and now there's probably houses there or some business or a parking lot. So if we start to lose our overall abundance of plants, then that allows the CO2 levels to increase, right? So less plants, more CO2, and actually less oxygen, right? So not a good situation. So once we have all that CO2 in the atmosphere, once we have all that CO2 in the atmosphere, it starts then to have like this, what we call greenhouse effect, right? You've probably experienced this. You park your car outside, the windows are rolled up, sunlight comes in, heats the dashboard, heats the seat, but then that heat can escape out through the glass. Same thing here. So the earth is warmed up and then the heat tries to dissipate and it has a hard time going out, and it kind of stays among, in that atmosphere. So that's sort of the idea of what CO2 does. This greenhouse effect, which then can contribute to global warming. You've heard this climate change. I don't know if you agree or not, but again, the data is there. If we're going to be scientific about it, we look at the data, and the data shows that we have had an increase in average global temperatures. So, and this is only going to continue if our actions continue as well. So we keep chopping down trees, we keep reproducing on a global scale, more CO2 in the atmosphere, trapping in more heat. And again, this is going to start to cause all kinds of other complications in our biosphere as well. So the idea of CO2 accumulation, which is causing then this idea of climate change. So changing the temperature of the oceans, causing different, polarized caps melting, less reflectivity of sunlight. It sort of domino effects and just causes chaos throughout. So that is sort of the hypothesis of how dinosaurs became extinct. So they think the accepted hypothesis is a big meteor crashed. You can imagine colliding into Earth, volcanic eruptions, dust, fire, smoke, ash, all this sort of debris in the atmosphere, making it difficult for sunlight to penetrate, and eventually not enough sunlight nourishing the plants fail. The dinosaurs that eat plants fail. The dinosaurs that eat plants fail, and it just collapses that whole food chain. And again, that's kind of a sad situation for these creatures. So again, we need to have sunlight coming in, but that sunlight has to be captured, converted, and basically the CO2 levels have to be maintained at a lower level in our atmosphere for us to function like we're used to. Yeah? So important global issues that your generation, your kids' generation, your kids' generation will have to address, right? Because it can get ugly very quickly with these changes in the atmosphere. So again, vacuoles, another organelle that plants have besides the chloroplasts. Right? So vacuoles then are going to be the storage organelle. So animals are mobile, right? We can get up, we can move. If you're thirsty, well, you go and you look for water. If you're a plant, you're literally stuck in the spot. You're literally rooted to the spot. So what they will have to do then is basically go out and send their roots into the ground, collect water, and they don't know when it's going to rain again. So they store the water, and they store the water in these vacuoles and these storage organelles. So they're like pockets on the body of these plants, these cells of the plants. They're going to store water. They can store different amino acids, nutrients, phosphorus, whatever they need. They can even store wastes. They can store enzymes, different aspects, depending on the plant, the species of the plant. So these vacuoles are large and well developed in plants, very small and scattered in animal cells. And again, here we have a little cell that vacuole is full. Here that vacuole is empty. if I can backtrack over here, let me way back. So showing you again that big vacuole in the plant. It's like, oh, we don't really have large vacuoles, right? Because we are mobile, animal cells don't have these large storage capacities. Plants have these very large storage capacities, and they're chloroplasts as well. So that's why they appear green, right? So they have the chloroplasts, they have the cell wall, and the vacuoles there. So with that, again, that sort of concludes our discussion on organelles, but also part of the internal structure of these eukaryotic cells is the cytoskeleton. So cytoskeleton is the internal framework of the cell, supports the shape of the cell. It helps to anchor organelles in a fixed location, but these organelles are typically protein-based. They're made of proteins. Organelles are going to be made up of phospholipid bilayers. So the cytoskeleton is not an organelle. It's different texture, right? Think of like how soft and squishy the liver is compared to how solid our bones are, right? So the rib cage is solid bone to protect then those delicate organs inside. So very different type of structure there. So cytoskeleton, I'm not going to get too involved with the different types. Just understand that they are microtubules, microfilaments, intermediates. They're all designed to help provide structural framework inside. So here we have a purple sheet. This purple sheet represents the plasma membrane. Purple sheet represents the plasma membrane. And then we have our organelles supported by these little green lines, anchored, attached to this organelle, attached to that organelle. If this cell is shaken up, the kid's on the trampoline, jumping, doing flips, this organelle is going to be in that same location. It's not going to shift and slide because it's anchored to that location. We have these blue components that make like solid beams. They're going to be for structural support. They're also going to be for tracks for moving different things. So again, all parts of the cytoskeleton. And again, neat technology here we have that we can sort of take x-rays, if you will, of individual cells, not just of the whole bones and the whole body, but x-rays of individual cells here. So we have these microfilaments, microtubules, the cytoskeleton of the cell. So cytoskeleton of the cell. So busy place inside a cell, right? Organelles, cytoskeleton, lots of things moving around. So it's a busy place inside one single cell. And the human body is comprised of trillions of cells. So you can see the complexity of this whole body. So last but not least, just to go back, we have outside of that plasma membrane, we have this thick cell wall, cellulose cell wall for plants. And eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells also have a thick cell wall, peptidoglycan. Think of it like our soft brain enclosed in that rigid skull, or the a football helmet, a motorcycle helmet on top of that. So providing a thicker layer of protection. So to summarize all this, right, here's like a little study guide for you, what to expect on the next exam. You should know the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Know what they have, the similarities, know their differences. When we talk about eukaryotic cells, understand the name, the function of the organelles, how the organelles work together. When we look at eukaryotic animal cells and eukaryotic plant cells, I would like for you to, again, understand the similarities and then also the differences between these. How do they differ in the cell wall? How do they differ in chloroplasts? How do they differ in vacuoles? How do they differ in lysosomes, right? So again, good study guide to focus on there. And I'll stop this now. I'm going to post one more video aside from this, but I don't know if I'll have time to do that until Monday. But again, you should have most of the material that you need to help you complete your homework that's due on Monday night, right? So I'll get this uploaded today to your Blackboard page, right? So with that, y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and I will see y'all next time.